Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video lecture. In the earlier unit 1 of chapter 1 in the business economics portion, we discussed about the history of economics a little bit and what is the role of economics in various societies and what kind of situations warrant that economics as a field of study becomes very important in solving the fundamental issue of limited resources but unlimited wants, and very particularly focusing on how economics is useful in businesses, how economics is useful in the decision making process of the businesses, and how it will try to help solving some of the internal issues as well as addressing some of the external issues surrounding any organization. Basically, the usefulness of business economics, we discussed about them. And not only that, what are the important characteristics or features of business economics also we discussed in the first unit of chapter 1. Now, moving ahead with second unit of chapter 1. In this unit, we are going to discuss what are the basic problems of any economy and how price mechanism or any other type of economic system tries to solve these basic problems we will address in this particular chapter. So basically, the learning objectives or outcomes of this chapter could be outlined like this. 1, to identify what are the basic problems faced by any economy. Economy here we can just call it as society also. And how different types of economies will solve these economic problems. And when we talk about different types of economies, we mean socialist economy, capitalist economy, or mixed economy, and what they will try to solve the basic problems faced by any society. And particularly focusing on the market economy, which runs on price mechanism and how that tries to solve the basic problems of economy, we need to understand that. That is going to be the learning objectives of this unit 2. Now, just to recapitulate a bit about earlier unit also, one of the major issues of any economy or any society is scarcity. That is a simple one word we can say, which describes about unlimited wants and limited resources. And naturally the resources, whatever the resources may be, all of them are generally limited only. Resources we can call are the inputs related for any production process, which include natural resources, man-made resources like capital goods, like machinery, consumer goods, or money or time. All of them which are part of the resources required in any society, they are all generally limited. Natural resources come from the nature, though man-made goods, whether capital goods or consumer goods, are manufactured by the human beings, still they will not be as abundantly available as they would be required by any society. And money, of course, is always limited. Time also required for any process will be limited in nature. So all the resources are not infinitely available, they are all limited in nature. And not only that, another feature of them is they all have alternative uses. For example, if you take coal, it can be used for different types of purposes. Maybe it is used as a fuel for production of industrial goods, or maybe it is used for running the trains, or maybe sometimes it is even used for cooking purposes, or many other purposes for that matter. Same way, financial resources also can be used in many purposes. So, two aspects of resources we have to understand. On one side, they are limited. On the other side, they have alternative uses. Imagine if, only imagine, not possible, if the resources are unlimited. Imagine. Then what happens? People would be able to satisfy all their wants. That means there is no economic problem. We don't have anything called economics in that case. But is it possible? Will it happen like that anywhere, any society in the world? Just impossible. Because always resources will be limited only. Only in the wildest imaginations we can think about any situation where resources are unlimited, which is just practically impossible. Same way, if any particular resource has only single use, then also in general there will not be big economic problem. That resource will be used for that purpose. But that is also another issue. Any resource you take, in general, will have multiple uses. It can be used in this way or that way or some other way. So always a question remains, how to use that? Because anyway it is limited in availability, but when it comes to usage, it has multiple options. So which option to be chosen, considering the limitation, is always a challenge, and that challenge is what we are talking about as basic economic problem. And that's what we can call that also the central economic problem. And what is that problem? That is a problem of scarcity, means the resources are limited, wants and uses are unlimited. Wants are definitely unlimited. The uses for which the resources can be used, purposes for which the resources can be used, is also multiple options are available. So that is the basic fundamental challenge any country, any society, any economy faces. That is why we can call that as a central economic problem. So this can be broadly, in a simple way, classified into four, we can say, questions that should be answered by any society. What are these four questions? What to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce, and not only that, what provisions are to be made for economic growth. If possible, then only the fourth one will be in picture. If not possible, the other three definitely will be always fundamental questions of any society. What to produce? Possibilities are there. Many things could be produced from the same resources. Should we use it for this purpose or another purpose is always a question mark. How to produce? There will be different types of technologies available possibly. So, which technology to use? That is always a question mark. For whom to produce? Who should be the target users of any produced goods or services? Always a question mark. And what provisions are to be made for economic growth? That also is a important question. And these are all what we call them as central economic problems. So these four questions will always remain. What to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce, what provisions are to be made for economic growth. We can call all of them as central economic problems. Of course, we will go in detail with each of them, but the questions themselves will tell us mostly the story of what it is. First, if you take what to produce. What to produce is what, simply speaking, there has to be a decision made as to which goods and services should be produced. That's what is the question of what to produce. What to produce also includes how much to produce. How many units of each good or service should be produced also has to be decided. Once again, because of what? Resources being limited. Take, for example, one of the major resources like money. Money is definitely a very limited resource. So, keeping that as a resource, whether an economy should produce more guns or should it produce more butter? Example it is given. That should be decided. Are we talking about butter is better than guns? Guns are better than butter? No, that is none of our business. We are not judging here on that. And it is not our purview also to decide. Who will decide that? Economy as a whole, government basically which is representing the people will decide on broader level usefulness of these items, how the guns or butter, for example, have to be produced from the same resources. So that's just an example. Like that, any examples can be taken. If you take the resources, for example, there is water only, simple natural resource that we are talking about. Water can be used for drinking purposes also, for cultivational purposes also, because without water, agriculture is difficult to run, or the same water can be bottled and sold also, and that can be bottled and sold as normal water, or that can be bottled and sold as carbonated water like soda, or that can be bottled and sold as cool drinks. In all cases that requires water, and the same water will be required for manufacturing many items. For example, thermal power stations require plenty of amount of water. So how much of water should be allocated to that activity? Like this, one common resource like water has multiple uses, and where that has to be used for manufacturing which goods and services this has to be used is always a challenge. Similarly, whether more capital goods are to be produced, like what? Machines, equipments, dams, projects, etc. Those can be called as capital goods. Or, for that matter, should more consumer goods be produced? Something like mobile phones or cosmetics. All these things are consumer goods that we use normally on day-to-day basis. Should the capital goods be given more priority, or consumer goods be given more priority, is another question mark. All are question marks only. If somebody is trying to answer them, please don't do that. That is not our business. Who has to answer that? That has to be answered by the society. Society is not just about one person. Collectively, what is society? Generally, the government. If not government, in some cases it is the market that decides. It depends upon what kind of society, what is the system of economy that society has chosen. But question remains the same. Question is not different for different societies. Question is same for any society. The question remains same whether it is for America or Australia or India or any other country. But the way that country answers these questions, the way a particular country or economy or society answers these questions, how it actually addresses this challenge, that might change from society to society, but society definitely has to decide about all these things. What type of goods are to be produced, how much quantity they have to be produced, all these things have to be definitely decided by a society. Just once again as an example, for one more example, understanding purposes, how much wheat should be produced, for example, or how many hospitals are required, for example, or how many schools will be required in a society, or how many machines to be produced, or how much of cloth to be produced, etc. Like this, every good and service, every means every good and service is to be ultimately produced and distributed according to the system which the society will choose. Society, once again, is about generally a country. Whenever we use that word, generally it is a country. We can use all these things, most of the cases, interchangeably. Society is a very broader word. Country at least has some geographical boundaries. or you can call that as an economy. So one economy, one society, one group of people, one country, one place has to choose about all these things, about what goods are to be produced and how much quantities they have to be produced, is a very important decision. All that can be summarized as simply what to produce. That's it. That is what to produce. Next, another challenge. Okay, let us say society has already made a choice. It's okay. Some decision they have taken. Not that everybody will sit together and take a decision. That is why there is a system. Whether it is a state controlled economy or not, there will be definitely a kind of system which will answer this question of what to produce. So this question is always an eternal question, but answer to this question will have to be given, will have to be addressed by any society. So that will be addressed. Without that, all of us using these things, we will not be able to have them. When you are watching this video on a mobile phone, how did you get that in your hand? Without that, society has taken a decision that yes, we need to either produce or import mobile phones, we need telecom services, we need data. All these things, when they are already there, as a cumulative effect of so many decisions, finally we are enjoying this product in our hand. And that applies to everything. The clothes we wear, the cosmetics we use, the shoes that we wear, the kind of goods, consumer goods that we daily utilize, all of that is ultimately the answer to the question of what to produce, which has already been decided by the society, whether expressly or impliedly. Either way, answer is pakka. Definitely, this question has to be answered. Society has to decide about this. And it is done already, let us say, as a sequence. Let us say what to produce is decided. Fine. Then naturally the next question comes is how to produce. Okay, we have decided what to produce. Let us say cloth has to be produced. Cloth can be produced in different ways. For example, it can be produced using hand looms, or maybe it can be produced using power looms, sometimes even automatic looms. Like that, different possible alternatives will be there. Alternative techniques will be there for producing any commodity. So when we have different techniques, then naturally there is always a possibility of selecting from any of these alternative techniques. Whether we are choosing hand looms or power looms or automatic looms, that depends upon once again choice of that society. What is that choice of society? That is how to produce. That is where the answer to this question will be given by society. Right? Of course, there will be different techniques having different requirements. If you just take once again the same example, say hand looms. Hand looms will require a lot of labor, means a lot of people should work. That is the nature of handloom technology. Or let us say if it is automatic loom that has been selected, then definitely the requirement will not be many people, but what will be the requirement? Machines, and machines will not come without money. So a lot of capital will be required. That is the reason. That is the reason when we generally classify the industries, we classify them into two categories. One is labor intensive industries. Labor intensive industries are one, that is one category. Capital intensive industries is another one, that is another category. So labor intensive industries means where people will work more, manual work will be there. Capital intensive industries means where machines will be more and people who are working will be there. Don't think machines will work on their own, not possible. Machines will also require people to at least switch on, switch off, that much requires people. So compared to labor intensive industries, capital intensive industries require less labor. But what they require? More capital and more machinery will be required. But who will decide? Who will decide whether to produce this cloth by using hand looms or power looms or automatic looms? Of course, society. Once again, society means a country or an economy or a place. Collectively, people have to decide what it is going to use, what type of technique it is going to use. Is it going to use labor intensive techniques or capital intensive techniques? Which technique it is going to use is always a important aspect for any society to answer. Like that, any type of industry will have this different choice of manufacturing any product or rendering any services. All are possible, but once again, the answer has to be given according to the requirements of the society and whichever gives the best use of available resources. Whatever the technique of production gives the best use of available resources, that has to be chosen by the society, and society will definitely choose according to its choice, according to its preferences and priorities. That is the second challenge of the central economic problems. First one was what to produce. Second one is how to produce. That's what we are talking about now. What to produce, as the name indicates, what to produce means what kind of goods and services should be produced and how much they have to be produced. Both come under the same question. So what and how much, both are under the same question. How to produce is related to the process of manufacturing or production or rendering of services. That is related to the technique. Which technique to be used, labor intensive or capital intensive? What is the better thing for a particular society will have to be chosen by the society. That is the second question. Third question is once again from the user's point of view. That is about what? For whom to produce. For whom to produce means who are the people who are going to use this? Who are the people who are going to actually consume the goods or services? That is what we call that as for whom a particular production of goods or services has to be done. Of course, one point is common irrespective of the nature of a society. This has to be always kept in mind. This is a very important point in a practical sense also. Any society cannot satisfy each and every want of all people. That is just impossible. That is not going to happen. Because people will have unlimited wants and society will never have resources to satisfy all those wants. All people, all wants, no society in the world can really meet it. So just impossible. We cannot say impossible is nothing, we can make it possible. All these things will be good in hearing. But actually speaking, it is just impossible for any society to satisfy all the wants of the people. That is reality. We have to accept that. So what society has to do? So definitely it has to decide on who finally should get how much of the total output of goods and services. I mean, how much share of the goods and services finally should be distributed to whom, to which category of people, which segment of the society. That has to be decided by the society. So all these things ultimately can be just expressed in one word. That's what is distribution, simply speaking. So irrespective of the different questions we talk about and challenges we talk about, ultimately economics always goes back to the same two aspects, production and distribution. What are these two talking about? Particularly when we talk about the what to produce and how to produce. What to produce is a broader level question. How to produce, this is all related to production. For whom to produce, this is related to distribution. So distribution and production are ultimately the two major aspects of economics. What to produce, how to produce is related to production. For whom to produce is about distribution. Simply, that is what we are talking about. How the goods and services have to be distributed among different members of society. In other words, if you just take a simple example, say imagine there is a cake and each of the persons who are going to eat that cake should get a piece of that. This question will tell us who will get how much amount. So who will get a bigger piece, who will get a smaller piece, who will get only a little bit, who who will get more, that will be definitely decided by the society. Of course, once again, it is not individuals like us who will decide it. Collectively, as a society, this for whom to produce is going to be decided. Answer for this question is going to be decided by society collectively like that. And what is that collective decision? That is basically the type of economy that the society has chosen. Depending upon the type of economy, answers to these questions will change. Definitely, what to produce will change. How to produce also will depend upon the kind of economy. For whom to produce also will depend upon the kind of economy. So when we talk about the decisions to be taken, these are all decisions to be taken at a society level. Once all these things are done, so production happened already, and what to be produced is already decided, and that produced things are already distributed to people. Okay, fine. So basically, manufacturing already finished, people got that also, whatever has been manufactured. So production, distribution finished. Core functions of economy has been done. But that is not enough. Why? Because not only everything has to be just produced and consumed. If that is the case, the human civilization would have been completely different. It is not just about producing and consuming only. If you just can relate it to it, it is also the provision that has to be made. In other words, a little bit of the produced amount has to be saved also for future. It is not to be completely consumed for current purposes. Entire resources cannot be used for current consumption. That would be wrong. Entire resources, if we use for current consumption, that would be wrong. Means something has to be stored for future. That can be called as provision to be made for future purposes. Just for understanding, you can imagine how the ants will behave. Usually during summer, when the dry months, ants will work overtime and they store the food at their place so that in the rainy season, they don't have to come out in the search of food. So what they do basically is they are creating a provision of food for themselves. It's the smallest possible living being on the earth, other than bacteria and viruses, etc. Such a small creature has this thought of creating a provision for future. It will not hunt for food for daily consumption. Of course, lions, tigers, such type of creatures may do that. Leaving that apart, particularly social animals like ants, human beings are very similar to ants in sometimes. Ants will teach us this lesson that all the resources cannot be used for current consumption only. You have to also save something for the future. You have to create a provision for the future. So there should be two things. One, current consumption anyway, whatever is required for daily purposes, anyway you have to eat. But you also save for the future. That is the important aspect of any society, which has always been there after the human beings started storing the items. And if we talk about the cavemen, like just converted human beings from apes. So those type of societies, small jungle-based societies, earlier, thousands of years back, Stone Age people might not really would have been required to create religions. But later they also understood, because of the challenges in nature, it always is better to store some food for future purposes. That's what they do. And later, once human beings have invented agriculture and most importantly the storage of food and food grains also and livestock also. Once all these developments happened in the society, then whatever the stored food was there, that became the wealth. Whatever the livestock that human beings had, that became the wealth. So over a period of time, if we observe the total human civilization, when a human being was just going for a hunt, whatever he found, he just ate it, day finished, he slept, again, start again in the next day. That was the nomadic old Stone Age type of situation. But once the civilization has improved, it is not the case. Human being is not working only for the today's meal. He is also working for something in relation to future. That has always been the case, at least for majority of the society. So that is how the society has to take a very important decision of how much to be used for current consumption and how much to be kept aside for future purposes. That is what is another important decision that a society or an economy or a country has to take. How much provision should be made for economic growth. So that is one more point where a society has to decide how much saving and investment is also required. Only current consumption is not the way. Of course, a portion will be consumed. Some portion should be definitely saved and invested. And why this saving and investment is done? Not for today. That is for tomorrow. That is for some time in future. So this saving and investment is the growth engine for future. So when we say growth, that is not possible without saving and investment. Saving and investment will generate growth. Otherwise, just imagine daily, just for imagination purposes, daily something is produced and the same day it is consumed and we just slept off and again fresh next day morning also. Again produced, consumed, slept. Then where is growth? Same thing will be there always. You do like this same routine for 500 years also, human beings will be still the same. But we are not like that. Human beings have evolved from just being animals to a different society level things. We like it or not, reality is that. Where human beings have developed this intelligence of not just producing something for current consumption, also keeping aside something for future progress. That's what is another important decision that any society has to take. Right? These are the four major points that any society has to decide: what to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce, and what provisions should be made for economic growth. In other words, in nutshell, if we want to understand these four questions, what to produce is about the goods and services, how much to be produced, and what categories of goods and services to be produced is a decision to be taken by a society. How to produce is about choice of technology or mode of production. Imagine agriculture can be done with ox also. It can be done with a tractor also. Some countries, highly mechanized agriculture is there. Some countries, like India for example, little bit mechanization happened, but lot of agricultural activity in India is still labor intensive. So how to produce the same thing? If let us say wheat is produced, whether it is produced in India or Australia, what to produce decision is same. Let us say Australia has decided to produce 2 lakhs tons of wheat in a year. India also decided to produce some 5 lakhs tons of wheat in a year. That is done. How much to produce, what to produce, both countries have decided. But how to produce, is it same? No. Australia might produce using more mechanical methodologies, less labor, more capital intensive. India may produce the same wheat by using more people on the ground. So these are the choices that societies will make. Of course, how societies will make according to their situations. India cannot take decisions from the point of view of Australia, and Australia cannot take decisions from the point of view of Zimbabwe. Any society, any country, any economy will take decisions, will answer these questions according to their requirements, and that is the collective decision of any society. And once that is done, also another point to be noted is how this distribution of resources, production and wealth has to happen among the society. So that is the third question, for whom to produce, which will be answered by naturally the society, which is nothing but simply who will get how much piece of the cake. That is the third challenge or problem or issue you can call, or a question you can call. All these questions will have to be addressed and answered by any society. And not only this, for existing production and consumption, a bit of that has to be kept aside for future progress also. That's what we call how much provision should be made for future economic growth, which is basically about savings and investment. Production and consumption is about now. Savings and investment is about future. That's what is the next level of answering certain questions in relation to an economy. That's why we call them as central economic problems or basic economic problems. Whatever the name we give, the essence is what we should understand. That is the first objective of this chapter, explain the basic problems faced by an economy. These are the 4 basic problems faced by any economy. Done. Now let us move on to how these problems will be addressed by different types of economies, or we can call them as economic systems. There are different types of economic systems. Ultimately, what any economic system will decide upon, it will do some arrangements for, again come back to the same word, economy always talks about these two. That is nothing but production and distribution of goods and services. That's it. Ultimately, economy is all about production and distribution of goods and services. How an economic system creates certain arrangements for that production and distribution is what we can refer to as an economy, or a type of economy, or you can call a model of economy, whatever it is. And of course, any economic system or economy includes various individuals as well as institutions. It's not about only individuals. Individuals will be there, organizations and economic institutions also will be there. Put together, there will be a common answer to these questions in different types of economic systems in a different manner. On a broader basis, on a broader basis. What are the 3 types of economic models which we can classify them into is capitalist economies, socialist economies and mixed economies. That is the broader classification of economic systems we can call. Of course, there will be a lot of differences between them. The purpose of this chapter itself is to understand how these different types of economies will solve the basic economic problems. That is the objective, one of the objectives of this chapter. That is why we are going to discuss how each type of economy is going to address the 4 fundamental questions which are faced by any society. Of course, they are not going to address in the same way, but point to note here once again is answers to those questions may change from country to country, economy to economy, model to model, system to system. Answers might change. Questions remain the same. Concept remains the same, that all questions ultimately will have to decide upon how production and distribution of goods and services to be done in a society. That is the ultimate objective of any economic system. One way we can say the goal is same, but the road in which that goal is reached is going to be different. Capitalist economies solve the questions solve the challenges and answer the questions in a different way. Socialist economies will solve the problems and answer the questions in a different way. Mixed economies is not something different. It is basically a mix of both capitalism and socialism. So, one point we have to understand here is, first of all, the problems are same. Those are the central problems. Only the way those are solved is going to be different. However, what are they going to tell us about is these things. Basically, production, exchange and distribution of various resources and how government will play a role in the economic activity. What role government will have in an economic activity is going to be different from one method to another method. So let us call them as models. You call them systems, you call them models. Either way it's okay, but ultimately there are broadly three models, three possible types of economies. One is capitalist economy, second one is socialist economy, third one is mixed economy. We will discuss what is the nature, features, and both positive points and negative points in relation to each of the economies in the coming classes. But I would like to give some kind of disclaimer at this point of time, because naturally it is a common tendency that when we understand certain things at a level which is very higher level, because all the level, what are we talking here? We are talking about a country, an economy, a system, a society, big things. Where we are living is a very small place. And these questions are all huge questions, way beyond our level. But when we are learning them, naturally, our thought process will take us to judgments, because we might identify our feelings with any one type of model. But what I would like to suggest particularly is, don't do that, irrespective of whatever the learnings that we are going to have in terms of these types of economies. We have to observe only what is reality. We should not have any bias. And I would like to refer to the earlier discussion of objectivity and subjectivity. So while learning them, while understanding them, should we be subjective? Ideally, no. We should be as much objective as possible. Means we don't need to judge. This is correct, this is not correct, this is better, that is not good. That is not our job. We have to understand that in mind. Why? For various reasons. One, our level of understanding so far with age or other learning processes so far is not that much. Key, we have reached a situation of judging anything. So that is one reason. And another reason is, first of all, that is not our objective. Nobody is going to ask you to write an essay in this particular paper. What do you think? Socialist economy is good or capitalist economy is good? What is your opinion? Nobody is going to ask you. So that type of thought process itself is not required. So what are we supposed to do here? Facts only to be just identified as facts. Sometimes they can be hard, sometimes they can be not so sweet, sometimes they can be bitter, but we just have to observe them as facts. Facts are facts. What are the facts we know now? Fact is that every society has to answer these questions. That's it. Sir, how good will it be if a society is there without any such challenges? Yes, it would be fantastic. But is it possible? Is it there in society? Is it there anywhere on the earth? No, that is not possible in reality. So the point of idealistic things and practicality are not same. Our brain has no limitations in imagining. Imagine there are unlimited resources. Then there is no problem. We don't need this subject at all. No economics is required. But reality is not that. No, reality is that resources are limited, wants are unlimited. So these questions will have to be answered by the society. There is no option. So while learning how the societies will answer these questions, our caution should be in identifying the realities, as theories, as they are generally perceived to be. That only we have to identify. For example, when we say capitalism, we have to identify that the theory of capitalism is what we are studying. Not that exactly in the real life also there is something called a capitalist economy. Nothing like that. Same way socialism. Again, theory is what we are talking about. Is there any 100% socialist economy? Nothing like that. Mixed economy, we just give examples. Like everybody from childhood knows, India is mixed economy. That's what we are told to. We were told that. We have always been told since childhood that we are a mixed economy. as if like somebody else is capitalist economy, as if like somebody else is socialist economy. For example, America is capitalist economy, or say China is a socialist economy. Both are only partially true, means partially false also. So will America run on 100% socialistic capitalistic principles? Not possible. So capitalism is one theory. Maybe a little bit of inclination towards capitalism might be more in America. Maybe a little bit of more inclination towards socialistic principles may be more in China. Maybe that too. We don't know. So there is nothing called 100% capitalist economy, nothing called 100% socialist economy. In reality, that is not quite possible. But what every country is trying to do, or what every country is, every society or economy is trying hard, it's like desperate to finally get to something better for their own citizens, is all about answering these questions. That is the common point, irrespective of the nature of society, irrespective of the nature of economy. All are going to answer the same questions. So while learning the questions and answers directly we may not know, but at least the way these questions are answered in different models, while we are learning them, my simple suggestion is don't be judgmental. Just learn them as they are. Oh, this is what capitalism is. Okay, so be it. Okay, this is what socialism means. Okay, so be it. Mix both of them. How you mix it also will be different. There is nothing called mixed economy. Is there any formula like idli mix? Or this much percentage of ingredient, that much percentage of ingredient has to be mixed like idli, dosa? Not possible. Nothing like that is possible to be framed in a percentage. But fact is, every economy in the world is a mixed economy. Only point is, how much percentages? Is it like more percentage of capitalism, less percentage of socialism? Or is it vice versa? Or is it like more or less equal? More or less, not 100%. Like 50-50. India mixed economy does not mean, never mean that we are 50% exactly capitalist and 50% exactly socialists. Nothing like that. Nobody can give these percentages, nobody can judge this, nobody can give any marks. This is not examination. So the point is, these are complex social situations, economic situations, in fact, actually speaking, political decisions also, which a type of system that any country has to choose, and that is only to be understood and learned from an observation point of view rather than getting involved in that. I'm just cautioning you because it is a natural process. While learning something, we might form some opinions on that. My suggestion is not to form. My suggestion is only to know. That's all. About that, if there is any opinion, immediately that becomes a judgment, that becomes a subjective thought process, which ideally should be avoided. This is very important, especially when we talk about generic things like this, because most of the aspects that we are going to discuss in this chapter are not technical. They are mostly generic in nature. A lot of reference can be made to the society where we are living, or to countries which we know or which we don't know. So a lot of practical observations will be there only for understanding purposes. That does not mean we get carried away with the theories. We cannot say that this is good, that is bad. That is not our job. We have to just be aware of that. I am not telling that you cannot have opinion at all. That is not my intention. You can have an opinion personally, yes, that is the right of every person. But the point is, when it comes to learning of economics, is that opinion going to help us? Are we going to learn economics with that bias? Are we going to learn the principles and practice of economics with that opinion? Then that will be dangerous. So it is not good for the learning process to frame any judgments at this level. It's too early for us to get into that. Once you understand these things in a bigger level later, maybe after 10 years I would say, then yes, then probably you can have a concrete opinion on them. So right now at this level, my suggestion is for you to only just go through the theories, understand this are the characteristics of capitalism. Okay, these are the characteristics of socialism. Okay, that's all. Good, bad and all, those things we should not generally go into, because we are not going to write any essay questions and because we are not going to participate in a debate competition, and end of the day, we are not in a position to change that also. We are what we are. Whichever system we are in that. So, once a person reaches to that level of public policy, then if they think about it, then it will be a different story. At this level, not required is what I would suggest. So, with that background of why we need to understand different economic systems, what are the problems that any society faces, and how the society answers these questions, that we will discuss in the coming classes. But right now, we can conclude this first session of chapter 1, unit 2, in relation to the central economic problems or basic problems, which we addressed today. In the coming classes, we will see how different types of models or different types of economic systems will answer these questions. What are their methodologies of answering these questions? We will definitely discuss in the upcoming sessions. Till then, take care. Bye bye. Thank you very much.